Okay, so our question that I'll be answering is from Skylar and Titan Caldwell, and they asked, should we continue adding kitchen scraps to our compost pile in the winter, or will they just freeze and not break down? Should we do anything different now that it's colder? Now, here's my disclaimer. Miss Deegan could talk about compost for days. So I'm about to set 3-minute timer. I'm not going to talk more than 3 minutes. The short answer is yes, continue adding kitchen scraps to your compost pile in the winter. They will not freeze as long as you give it proper attention and care and love. So I don't know if you need to do anything differently. It kind of depends on how much attention you've been giving to your compost pile and what kind of composting system you're using, because there are a variety. But let me show you this diagram that Miss Deegan uses to monitor the compost piles at school, and maybe that will help you determine if you need to do anything differently. So there's a lot of information on this reference chart, but I want to draw your attention to the 3 sides of the triangle and the colors within the triangle. So the 3 sides of the triangle, the most important one for this question is the right side where it says oxygen. So you want to make sure that your compost pile is getting enough oxygen. And the way that you do this is by turning your compost. Now, depending on what kind of compost system you have, turning it might look different. But if you just have a big compost pile in, one corner of your yard, the way you turn it is with a big tool. So Skylar and Titan, you might need mom or dad's help to turn that compost pile with a shovel or a pitchfork. But it's a job for a whole family to do together. But that will give oxygen to all the microorganisms who are working so hard in the middle of your compost pile. And as they work, they're going to generate heat, which is going to affect your temperature. Now, when your compost pile is at peak activity, it's in the range of 130 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's pretty warm. So in the winter, if you turn your compost and steam starts coming off of it, you know it's active and it's doing good. If you turn your compost and it's almost impossible to turn because it's frozen, it's not active enough. And the way that you can adjust its activity is both by turning it more and making sure you have the correct ratio of green things to brown things. So brown things are like leaf litter or cardboard. Green things are, think your kitchen scraps. So you want to make sure you have a 3-to-1 ratio roughly of brown things to green things. And that will all impact both your temperature and down at the bottom, your moisture. So you want to make sure that it's not so wet that it's soggy, and you want to make sure that it's not so dry that it's just crumpling apart. So in the last 15 seconds I have here, make sure your compost pile is covered away from the elements. Make sure your microbes are kept alive. You do this by turning your compost. You do this by insulating your compost. I find that not enough people add browns, so keep adding carbon. Browns are sources of carbon, so keep adding carbon. Monitor the moisture. Make sure it's not too dry, not too wet. Track the temperature, whether you want to be very scientific about it and take the exact temperature with a thermometer, or if you just want to use your senses to see how warm it is by feeling it or seeing if there's any steam coming off of the top of it after you turn it. And if none of this sounds like fun, you don't want to go outside and, have to pay attention to your compost pile when it's really chilly outside, even though I promise you it's fun. It really is. I think it's a really cool daily science experiment that gets to feed my garden, and it's reusing things that I couldn't use. So it feels like such a good, satisfying thing to do. But if, you don't think you're set up for keeping your compost pile alive in the winter, maybe try a worm bin inside. Worms are really easy to find and get, whether you're collecting them from your current compost pile or you're getting them from an online lab supply store. And you just need a plastic bin and some old newspapers to make a worm bin. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up questions, you know where to reach me. And thanks for submitting a question, and I look forward to answering more. So good luck.